Welcome into the SBR Betting Roundtable. We've got some of the best minds in the sports betting business. Donnie Rightside, Jeff Nadeau, Ian Cameron. We're going to be talking some NFL, college football, also a little NCAA basketball scandal here. We got best bets and the Degenerate special. So let's go right around the horn, guys. Welcome yourselves in. Let's start off with Ian Cameron. Find him on Twitter at Babano. Ian, how you feeling, buddy?
I could be better. I got a little sore throat, but that's not going to stop me from being part of my favorite show all week, the Roundtable, especially during football season. We got lots to talk about, and I already feel a cough coming, so I'm going to hand it back to you, Drew.
All right. Well, thanks for plugging through there, Ian, up in Canada. So next up, Donnie Rightside. Find him on Twitter at RightSideVP. His work at Donnie Rightside or rightside.com, DonnieRightside.com. Donnie, how you feeling, buddy? NFL, college football. Excited to hear your opinions.
Yeah, definitely. I love this time of the weekend, especially, this show, 12:30 p.m. We all have a good time around here. I think Ian's getting a little bit choked up here because hockey's about to start for the season. He's drained on all his energy from stockpiling over the offseason there in the summer, and we're ready to get after it. We were on the show last night with Gabe and going over Vegas hockey last week. Amazing how quick these seasons change. Before you know it, guys, we're going to be talking NCAA football, NCAA basketball, NHL hockey, NBA basketball, college football, and pro football, and baseball at the same time. Woo! Here we go, baby.
Oh, quickly, I got to point out something. Hockey show news here at SBR coming very soon. Hopefully by the end of the week. That's all I can say right now, but something's coming, an announcement's coming, so hold on for that, hockey fans.
All right, and last but not least, Jeff Nadeau. Find him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. He is a big man on campus. Welcome in, buddy.
Hey, Drew. How you doing? I spent this morning researching Duquesne's men's basketball. I'm on the route, Drew. I'm trying to go over every team one by one. It's a long, tedious process, but hey, somebody's got to do it.
Well, we did a show on Saturday where you didn't sleep. I only slept 4 hours. You said you were doing some NCAA basketball research.
Yes, I'm on Duquesne. I'm in the D's right now, so I got to keep it going here. I'm trying to do a couple a day, so I don't sleep much. That's just me. I don't like to sleep. So I just try to get involved with basketball, but football's been good. 11 of 17 I've hit. So I'm looking forward to keeping it going and getting involved in basketball as well. A lot to do, Drew.
All right. Well, 11 of 16, you said? That's pretty damn good, man.
11 of 17. Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. And hey, guys, let's just start off with the NFL. King of the betting handle anyway, and start off with Donnie Rightside, man. I know you know the NFL as good as anybody. What caught your eye?
Taking a look at a couple things over there that caught my eye over the weekend. If I start with the hometown Philadelphia Eagles for myself, a nice gutsy win. They would not have won this football game last year, lost a lot of players, came into the game limping. A game Giants team finally getting, their P's and Q's in order. I was really impressed by that. A couple things that I was not impressed by watching the overall game plan by the Los Angeles Chargers. And again, we talk about, new environments playing. There's no home field advantage for that football team for the rest of the season. They barely can fill up that stadium or even sell it out. Most of them aren't their fans. A lot of apathy in that area. It's going to be interesting over the next couple of years, just taking a broad stroke here, what's going to happen actually with the Chargers and their fan support and what's going to take place in Los Angeles, but not looking good for them as a franchise right now.
So they're sitting at 0-3, right, Donnie?
Yeah.
Do you think that
and a bad 0-3? And if you take a look, they lost to the Miami Dolphins. You say, hey, Dolphins coming in, Jay Cutler playing well. Well, the Dolphins go up and get smoked by the Jets. The Chargers are playing there, sitting on their home field, going against Kansas City. They could barely even move the football. Phillip Rivers is a shell of him, former self about 10 years ago. No explosive weapons on the Chargers right now. I know they have a nice front line. I like their front seven. I think it's decent. They're going to get Denzel Perryman back in a couple weeks to anchor that middle linebacking position. Already losing Verrett down a cornerback. It's just not looking good for the Chargers right now.
Man, and do you think that has something to do with the move, or is this just a bad team?
Yeah, I didn't have high hopes for the team coming in, but also you're just ripping them out of their fan base, moving them into, Carson, California. There's no home field advantage. They probably don't even have a great headquarters setup or a practice facility, just mooching off somebody else. In a couple of years, they're not even going to own their own stadium. They're going to be a tenant in their own stadium in a city that probably doesn't want them, and it's hard enough to get people to go out to a ballpark to see, multiple baseball teams. You got a hockey team, multiple basketball teams, college. They're going to be fighting, and it's going to be a hard market for them to penetrate.
Absolutely. I mean, that LA market, there's a lot to do there. And I forget what the stats were exactly, but I believe it was the USC Texas game, or USC had a game And they had more fans at that game than the 2 NFL games combined. So not a good start there for the NFL in LA. But Jeff, let's bring you in, man. Do you have any other thoughts on the Chargers, or what else caught your eye in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't have much on the Chargers. I do want to talk about the Steelers. This team has looked poor. I mean, they haven't been able to run the football. And Donnie and I talked about it. Not only has Big Ben not looked good on the road, but he's not looked good on the road in his entire career. You look at the things going on with this team off the field, and I think, Drew, that was the big thing coming out of last week. Not only the protest, but some of the teams that were involved heavily in protest, not coming out for anthems, those teams seemingly had tough days. Several of them, particularly the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a tough day. It's not so much protest. I've made it clear where I stand on that. It's the fact that it's screwing up routines, it's screwing up schedules, it's screwing up creatures of havoc that do the same thing every week. Now you're throwing in, you got one guy on the field doing a protest and the rest, some don't want to do it, some do want to do it. It's just setting up a lot of issues in the locker room, and all of us are human beings at the end of the day. I know if before this show we announced we were going to do something totally different, it would throw us off a little bit. It's just how things work. And you look at the Steelers, not only has Le'Veon Bell not been much involved with this offense, but their quarterback can't do anything on the road, and they have a lot of problems in the locker room. Their coach seems like he's on a soapbox giving his opinion every day on CNN. It's just they're a team that concerns me going forward. They'll get it going. Le'Veon Bell will be fine, but right now it's kind of concerning with some of these teams with that.
I want to mention one quick addendum to that, too. Ben Roethlisberger's lost his ability to connect and find any sort of form with the deep ball so far this season, too. That has been a really major problem for him. You just worry that all that retirement chatter in the off-season regimen, his preparation, whatever you want to call it. But I've been very disappointed with how he's thrown the football, especially on balls down the field, like 20, 30 yards or more. He has been off. He's been inaccurate with those throws. We'll see if he can get that corrected.
And big man, to follow up with you, maybe for more of the surface level better, that may not know exactly what exactly is going on with the Steelers. What, other than just like kind of kneeling during the national anthem, what do you mean by throwing off their routine?
Well, they're not going out for the national anthem. There's a lot of things going on with. It's not so much kneeling. It's not the thought of kneeling. It's you could protest however you want. I'm not against that at all. But it's just throwing off their normal routines. There's a lot of issues in the locker room as far as many agree, many don't. It's just like, for instance, Donnie, we've talked about when you go to the game, you have the same routine every game. Okay, you eat, you get ready, you go out and practice, then you come in, you all go out as a team. It's a uniformed routine, and you're throwing it off. Your mind's obviously and clearly elsewhere. So when you're looking at sports betting, you got to look at little things like that. And Drew, it was no surprise that Seattle, they didn't come out for national anthem. They didn't play well. They've been Michael Bennett's been pretty much the vocal leader of the NFL about this. Now that Kaepernick's gone, there's just certain teams that it's affecting, I think, a little bit, and it's been a little bit more than football. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to protest, but you should be focused on your job, because at the end of the day, your job as an NFL football player, and it's to perform at a high level. I just think it's throwing the teams off a little bit.
Donnie, do you think that could be used as a betting angle, as far as betting on some teams or looking to fade other teams like the Steelers?
Yeah, I don't really think it's a betting angle, but it's an interesting attribute to the game plan, because if you take a look at Mike Tomlin, even coming out from his presser yesterday saying, hey, look, I'm a football coach. I do a lot in the community, but I do it on my own time, which almost led me to believe like Tomlin's basically telling his Steelers, like, look, we're a football team. We're paid to win football games and go out and, do that. Instead of, having a meeting, every 15 minutes on how we should actually protest this week or what's correct or what we can do. Look, let's break down some film. We're here to play football. And last week we had a fractured locker room. One, veteran goes out and stands for the national anthem. We stay in the locker room. The quarterback doesn't know what he should do now. The head coach doesn't know what he should do. There's fighting in the locker room. And he's basically saying, like, look, when it all comes down to it, like, whatever you want to do on your own time, do on your own time. But when you put on that Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, we're here to play football at the end of the day.
And it's also showing, to prove that point, if you heard Mike Tomlin, he said, we're all one unit. We all do what we do. So why was one person out and one, there's just, it doesn't seem like it's going cohesively. Everyone needs to be on the same page. I give the guy the credit, Villanueva. He has a passion. He loves this country, and he's going to go out and do that. But it's just throwing off as far as for the team. I just think a lot of things that they normally do. But I think going forward, I think it'll tone down a little bit. But yeah,
it'll be over. Even what was it? Elway came out today and basically said like, hey, last week was great. You took a knee and you protested. You got your point across. Now it's time to get back to football. And I think the country agrees with that. I don't think anybody at this point, it reaches a crescendo where, you start to fall in a deaf ear where who's protesting what? I don't even know what's going on anymore. Why don't we just get back to playing football? In the next week or two, you won't hear about these protests very much any longer.
As you can tell by the fact I'm lurking in the weeds here, I am sick to death of talking about all this, to be honest with you. Play football. And I agree with Donnie. I don't look at this as a betting angle from any standpoint. I'd rather be a capper. I don't want to be Dr. Fraser Crane. I don't want to be Dr. Phil trying to get inside of these guys' damn heads. I don't want to do that.
Well, it's nice to see, though, the NFL stepping up and making their voice heard, because their voice was heard. And that's great. And we all go back to the person that started this, Colin Kaepernick.
All right, guys, let's get into the actual handicapping of it. Pick Carolina versus New England. That's a game we're going to break down on this Sunday schedule. We got 9.5, even 5 dimes showing a whacked out line of 10.5. 2-1 teams, both 1-2 against the spread year to date. Big man, you want to start us off? Why is New England commanding almost a 10-point favorite role here?
Because Carolina's not very good. Cam Newton is really struggling. This offense is really struggling. They lose one of their best receivers on a team that doesn't have many good receivers. They lose their best receiver. Christian McCaffrey has really been the only person that's done much of anything. And I don't think he could take the whole team on his back and say, I'm going to take us. He's a rookie. He's a guy that, by the end of the season is going to be worn out with all the stuff that he's done. Cam Newton has been poor defensively. Their front seven's good, but overall, their secondary is not very good. They're just, most of all, they just can't score. And now they got to go on the road to New England. It's just a tough spot. I think my panel can agree here that Carolina has really struggled, and I don't think it's going to get any easier. Cam Newton has had one really good year in the NFL. Other than that, he's been just average to good. Tom Brady, to me, next man up in that offense. They just step in. They just, you lose Edelman. Gronk's been a little hurt, but he steps up. Cooks finally steps up. There's just so many people stepping up. Defensively, I think they still have a little bit of a problem. I expect Carolina to move the ball a little bit. I'm looking to bet overs in New England games from here on out. This team, they score seemingly 30-plus points every game and give up in the 20s. I'm looking more along the lines of over here, but I think New England covers as well.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off you. Carolina, New England. I don't get much out of this football game. I'm probably going to stay far away from it, 8, 9, 10, wherever it ends up. If it goes up to 10 points, Jeff, we're probably looking at, you really would have to lean with Carolina, even how bad they played on offense, because right now it doesn't look like New England, defensive-wise, is that good of a football team. But if you want to counter that and say, well, if New England's defense isn't very good, take a look at the Carolina offense. Maybe down Kelvin Benjamin this weekend, obviously relying on Funchess. No structured tight end over the middle. We'll see if they get Khalil back, which is an interesting cog that they need from the center perspective. And you're not just going to go out in the NFL and just try to run the football and beat the New England Patriots. You're going to have to throw the ball. Right now, Cam Newton just can't do that. But in the NFL, it's hard just to win football games. You saw that last week where Houston went up and damn near beat, and probably should have beat, the New England Patriots, getting about 13.5 points. This one obviously closing a little bit less. But if you have to make a play on this game, Jeff, you're right. I'm not going to lean on Carolina at this point here. Give me New England. I think they can win the game by 10 points, but we'll see as it goes later in the week with some injury updates.
You look at Carolina. They've struggled to move the football. They're only scoring 15 points a game, but you look at against the defenses they've played. Buffalo's a great defense. San Francisco's pretty good as well. New Orleans, you only scored 13 points, which is concerning. But if they can get into that 13 to 20 point range, Donnie, I think this game's going to go over. New England's going to attack that secondary, and we all know Carolina has a problem in the secondary. I think this is a 34, 20 type of game, 35, 17. I think this gets up and over that 50-point mark at where we're at here. It's just going to really hamper on, can Carolina score points. I think they can here. I think they're good enough. They're not great, but this is mostly going to be New England doing all this.
I think we have to talk about what New England did last year to relate to what's going to happen to them throughout this year. Because last year, New England in winning the Super Bowl, and for being as public and popular a team as they are in the betting markets, they had one of the point spread excellent seasons you'll ever imagine. 16-3 last year were the New England Patriots against the spread, regular season and playoffs combined. That's not supposed to happen for a team that's as public, as popular, and as dominated as they are among the betting masses. And obviously the books are forced basically to make an adjustment toward the New England Patriots. And that's already showing signs. I mean, they're 1-2 against the spread, but I got some massive concerns about what I think now could be a very, very flawed New England football team. I mean, the offense has been good in times this year. They still miss Julian Edelman. They're still trying to work around that. The defense has been a massive problem. Matt Patricia's defense has been not just bad. They've been horrendous. I mean, you look at some of these numbers for their defense, 461 total yards per game allowed. That's dead last in the NFL. 5.1 yards per rush, 130.3 yards per game allowed on the ground. That's 31st and 26th in the NFL. Against the pass, they're allowing 330 yards per game, 8.8 yards per pass. Those rank 30th or worse in the NFL. Those are horrendous numbers on the defensive side of the football. And who did they play in their first 3 games? Alex Smith, okay, solid quarterback, but not elite. Drew Brees, good quarterback, but struggled mightily those first 2 games. And Deshaun Watson, rookie quarterback, making his first ever start on the road in a tough environment. And the New England defense has just been picked apart. And that's a concern because of the fact that this is an overvalued commodity. And if you're not getting stops on the defensive end, that's a concern. I want no part of laying the points here with New England. But the problem on the other end of this spectrum is Carolina and their putrid offense, which is just an absolute mess right now. Cam Newton is not getting time to throw the ball. And when he is, he's not accurate with the ball. They missed the tight end, Greg Olsen. Benjamin now injured. Who are the weapons that Cam Newton's going to use to throw the football to make this offense go? I don't know if they're going to be able to get it going. I think New England's defense is vulnerable, but damn, why is this the week they're playing Carolina? Why? Because I don't know if Carolina's going to have a boatload of success offensively either. They're a mess.
Hey, guys, let me jump in here. Is the mic all right now?
Yes, there we go.
All right, we hear you with the fix here. So, Jeff, go ahead, buddy. What do you have on this game?
Yeah, you would think, Ian, and you make good points. You would think, though, the defense will, kind of even out a little bit. The good point is, though, I mean, they have the best offense in the league. So, I mean, again, they're in a group where you would expect come playoff time, they're going to be at home. That's going to even out a little bit. I mean, even last year, I mean, their defense wasn't very good. I mean, the good thing is nowadays in the NFL, there aren't a lot of great offenses, really. I mean, I think that's one thing you can hang your hat on. Plus, you look at their division. You're dealing with Jay Cutler, the Jets, and Buffalo, who can't move the ball either. No one in their division is really concerning from an offensive standpoint. But I agree. I mean, Patricia's got to be better. I mean, he comes across as this really smart, great coach. He's got to be better defensively. And Ian's right. I mean, I will say this. Drew Brees is great, as we know. And Alex Smith looks good as well. But what was your, how did you give up 33 points to Houston? I mean, at home. They have to be better on that side.
Yeah, let's put this in perspective with New England and their struggles here through 3 games. They nearly lost 2 straight home games in a row at Gillette Stadium for the first time since 2006. And if not for a pass that should have been picked off in the end zone by Houston, went right through his hands and right into the hands of Chris Hogan for that game-winning touchdown, they'd have lost 2 straight home games to start the season, the New England Patriots. So there are concerns, particularly defensively, that this team's got to figure out. They're an overvalued commodity. New England's a one-way team for me right now from a betting perspective. Either I bet against them or I leave it alone.
Over.
All right, boys. Well, hey, Ian, you just finished up on the NFL. Are you ready for 60 seconds with Cameron, or do we need to wait until next week?
Well, you can do that actually right now because we have some Johnny Manziel news in the CFL. He is not going to be awarded a contract by anybody this season, at least not this season. He met with Commissioner Randy Ambrosi. It's done for this season. He is not going to be allowed to be offered a contract by any CFL team this season. He will be eligible for one in 2018 next season, and the Ticats still own his negotiating rights, so it'll be up to them. If they don't want to sign him, they've got 10 days to decide, starting November 30th after the Grey Cup. And then if they decide they don't want him, they've got to either trade his rights or release his rights at that time. So the Johnny Manziel to the CFL saga is over for now, but it's not over completely.
All right, that was a good 60 seconds of Cameron. Thank you for that. Our buddy Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, I mean, he's our SBR friend. You got to keep everyone up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That was great. Hey, and guys, before we get into college football, wanted to talk a little NCAA basketball. We know Big Man knows it as good as anybody. We got the Louisville issue. Also, Auburn thrown around in there. That's kind of scary. But what are we thinking of this? Obviously, these players are worth something, and money is being paid in some form or fashion, and it's going to come back to haunt some of these schools. So, Big Man, you probably know the most about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to really – the shoes are going to drop around college basketball. This is not all that's going to happen here. I mean, if you think this is it, you're crazy. This is going on. The FBI is cleaning up part of it. You saw this morning Rick Pitino out as basketball coach. And look, Donnie and I talked to it yesterday. Pitino needed to be fired. He should have been fired back during the escort service. The kids that are involved here probably won't play this year. They'll be ineligible due to receiving money. And you would think, I mean, I've looked over recruiting, obviously throughout the whole year. There are a lot of students, a lot of student athletes that are going to schools that just don't make a lot of sense. I mean, the number one recruit in the country, DeAndre Ayton, wanted to go to Europe to play basketball, and all of a sudden he decides he's going to go to Arizona. If you look, Arizona's on the list. I think the shoe's going to drop right now. There are a lot of teams out there. You look at Arizona, USC. I mean, you mentioned Auburn. Pitino, I don't think was they're saying, hey, go and do this. But I think behind closed doors, he won't do that due to the fact that he makes so much. There's no way he was – I don't think he was directly involved in saying, hey, go out and do that. But I think the writing was on the wall on what to do here. This is how you get recruits. Brian Bowen, I mean, the fact that he chose Louisville was one of the most surprising things I've ever seen in basketball recruiting. He had no reason to go there. They didn't recruit him. They hadn't talked to him. And all of a sudden – he goes to Louisville out of nowhere. I think from a betting perspective, this is interesting as well because you look at some of the schools involved. I mean, Louisville, Arizona. Arizona is on the precipice this year of maybe finally being that Final Four team they've waited to be. This is going to set up problems going forward with their coaching staff, with some of the things going on. And you see a team like Duke just sitting there saying, we'll let everything happen around us, and we'll be ready for the season. This is going to be a big problem going forward this year. You're going to see a lot more shoes drop, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I read it from Auburn's angle, Big Man, where Pearson he's going down, and I guess the shoe companies were giving him money to give to the students that he thought could go to the NBA. And I'm thinking, man, has Auburn even had an NBA player in the last decade?
Well, the thing is, Mustafa Heron, who is a really good player at Auburn, he's from Connecticut. He's a high-level Connecticut basketball player, and he chose Auburn very oddly out of Auburn's not, let's be real, a basketball school. Chuck Person was telling recruits that they could have the same financial advisor as Charles Barkley, which wasn't true. And Drew, the most amazing thing about all this, if they would have just did a simple Google search on one of the financial advisors, they would have found out he was arrested by the FBI. He was involved in Ponzi schemes and things like that. Just the amount of things that went on here were just amazing. I mean, and it was all from a confidential informant, not even involved with college basketball. He was just trying to cut his sentence down, and he said, you know what? I got a big college basketball scandal. The FBI likes sexy, Drew. This is a sexy case to them. And Auburn is in trouble because they don't get many recruits as it is. You get a guy like Mustafa Heron, that should have threw up.
Red flag, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, even looking from a money or dollar perspective there, where would like the Darren Ravel tweets about 3 weeks ago? My goodness, did you see Adidas making all these gains in the last year against Jordan Brand and Nike? Well, I mean, this is how you make the gains. You go back door. The same way I equated to Ole Miss. Ole Miss was a flat run program. Ed Orgeron ran right into the ground, and out of nowhere, the miracle, the Phoenix rises up, and we have the best recruiting cast in the country. Hugh Freeze, nobody even knows your name. How'd you do this? We outworked everybody. As you saw over the years, they paid everybody. The same way with Adidas. making over $7 million a year. Pitino's the head coach. He has Adidas's ear. Adidas says, look, we want to be back in the mainstream. We want to challenge Nike. How can we do it? Let's go talk to the big wigs. And you get together with Pitino, and Pitino goes, you know the rules here. If you want Adidas to be in Louisville, I have the ear of Tom Jurek, who basically, I'm the boss of the AD at Louisville in this. I'll tell them what goes. You want them here? You better build me a basketball team. And they know exactly how to do it. Steer guys to me, have an unlimited cash flow. The better Louisville does, the better Adidas looks. We win national championships. We have all that Adidas gear out here. Don't think for 1 second that Pitino didn't meet at the very top of Adidas and said, you want me, you're going to pay me, but you're also going to stack my team. And you know what? This is the last we're going to meet, just like a mob boss. You're going to go do everything with my underlings, and they're going to give you the go. If I say I need this done, we're going to take care of it, but I want to act like I know nothing about any of this stuff, but I want to see these players come here.
And according to, and I want to make this clear as well, the other school involved here that's not getting any sort of press seemingly is Miami. Miami is the other school involved with this, and look, I mean, it's a really simple process. Someone went to an AAU basketball coach in Miami, the one family team, and said, listen, you funnel us high-level recruits, let them know what they want, we'll get their asking price. Nasir Little is the other person involved here, a 2018 recruit. He's from the Miami area. They were in a bidding war with Arizona to get the kid. They threw him $150K. He decides he's going to go to Miami. All of a sudden, yesterday, he decides that he's going to reopen his enrollment period. So, look, there's a lot of weird things going on here, one of which, though, is very simple. They go to AAU coaches, say, hey, listen, we'll sponsor you. We'll throw you money. You give us the 5-star recruits, and make sure they pick us over teams like Arizona, things like that. I mean, it's big money here. $150K to one kid, $100K to another. Louisville, I really believe this could be the nail in their coffin, honestly. I don't know how they can go past this. I don't. I mean, there's been several different things that have went on here with the school over the last couple weeks, and this is the worst.
So what are you thinking? Death penalty for Louisville? 5 years, no basketball
Yeah,
team?
they learn their lesson with, like, a death penalty can basically bankrupt the entire university. And the NCAA, with the good thing about this is, if we're all looking at it, is that the FBI is involved. They have subpoena power. They'll throw you in jail, and these threats are real. When the NCAA comes down, like on a team like Miami, and strings it out for 8 years, has no subpoena power, but literally drags them through the mud, and then they can't prove anything technically at the end and give you a slap on the wrist. The same way Penn State went down. You had, Joe Paterno, Sandusky. It had nothing to do with football, and the NCAA just comes in arbitrarily and is like, you're going to get like a $30 million fine and get out of here. And the kids had nothing to do with it. It was nothing about football or even sports. So the NCAA trips over itself all the time, but they're in it to win it for themselves. It's about money. If they could do it right now and bury this lead, they would bury it right now and say, Louisville, continue to do what you do. We're going to look the opposite way.
That's the shameful thing about all this. This was happening under the NCAA's watch here. The NCAA did nothing about this, and that's the point of the matter here. This is federal laws. These are things you go to prison for. You're not going to get away from this, and you better believe, I'm going to guarantee Rick Pitino's involved directly with this. Did he take money? No, because he's not going to take a bribe. But you better believe he was sitting on the top table saying, you two. And that's what's so shameful here. Rick Pitino allowed and made underlings do it for him. He, just to keep himself away from the stink. Stop talking about Rick Pitino as a Hall of Fame coach. He's a scumbag slimeball that has manipulated people his whole career, and that's why he's won national championships. Not because he's a good coach. Well, he's a scumbag.
Yeah, it's not just this. And it's just not this situation either. I don't know. I think it's damn difficult to make a case to defend Rick Pitino here. Look at the Karen Cypher incident. Look at the sex for pay scandal. I mean, look at all the stuff that's gone on with Louisville.
And continues to lie about it. I wasn't around it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, it's not just been one thing or one incident. There's been a bunch now in just the last 7 years that have cropped up with Rick Pitino, and we're going to say he's innocent in this? Come on.
And guys, what about bringing up another big program, Kentucky, and what they've been able to do? Is Calipari, pretty much sweating bullets? That's what we're seeing in the live chat.
Oh yeah,
like Kyle.
I think Kentucky, though, I really believe they've just really anointed themselves as the go-to spot for college basketball players. They've done it for so many years. They might have did it years ago, but I don't think they need to anymore. They're just the go-to.
Yeah, but a lot of these kids would be able to go to the NBA as is, and most of them have their hand out anyway. Like, hey, Where are we going to go? I'm looking at Arizona. What are they giving you? They give my mom a Lexus. They're going to give me 50 G's. What's Kentucky giving you? Nothing. Yeah, I'm not going there. There's a lot involved going into all this.
But there has to be that good program out there that says, you know what, don't go with them. Look how shady they are.
Yeah, so
we're going to put you in the league in a year, and that's it.
BMOC, you're bringing up kind of like the Alabama in football philosophy where they don't have to do that anymore. I'm not really buying it. Like Donnie was talking about Ole Miss. I think that these SEC teams, I mean, the speed limit's 80.
And why
everybody's going 90.
If you're a high-level quarterback or a point guard, you're going somewhere, and your best friend's going, hey, man, I'm going to Michigan State. They just gave me this, BMW. They also gave me 50 grand cash. My mom's going to have a job. What would they give you to go to Alabama? Yeah, nothing. They just promised me that I'm going to work really hard and I might make the NFL. The kids don't go for that anymore, man. They just don't. When they're friends, which they all talk to each other, hey, where are you going? What's going on? What are they giving you over there? Well, they're going to give my boy a scholarship. They're going to give me $5K a month as long as I'm there, and that's where I'm going to go. They all know this.
We live in a dangle the carrot society now, Donnie. Bang on, 100%. Yep.
Yeah. I'm not going to comment on Kentucky. I think they've done it up the board as far as I know.
That's an interesting philosophy.
Calipari, all those scandals at Memphis. Calipari goes to Memphis, which is a downtrodden program, and all of a sudden they're in the Final Four every year. What, because he recruited well, because kids wanted to go to Memphis? No way. That's all. Everything is connected for a handout. Calipari, to me, is the same exact guy as Pitino, the identical clone. I don't know anything. Don't force feed me this. I just do what I do, and I do this way. Kentucky is a blue blood program that has a ton of money for the basketball team. It all breaks down to, Jeff, what kid wants to go in the middle of Podunk, Kentucky to play basketball when they could go anywhere they want?
Because they're the highest level program in the country, like Alabama is. That's why. And they can do it the right way. They're going to stay there for a year. They don't care. They're going to the NBA. Why would they need to take – they don't need to take bribes. They're going to the NBA. Why would they do that? Kentucky.
Reggie Bush went to USC completely on the takeout there. He could have went wherever he wanted. He knew he was going to the NFL. Why would he take money and not just wait 1 year and get all the money? And I can't blame you. If you're 18, 19 years old and you say, hey, man, I didn't come from much, and go, I'm going to get you the most banging car out here. I'm going to fill up your pocket. You're going to have jewelry. I'll get you some girls. Your family's going to be taken care of. I'll fly him out to every game. The kid's going to be like, yes, sign me up. Sign me up.
I think you're being a little ostentatious here. I don't think that's – maybe you're right, but as far as Michigan, I don't think the Fab Five should ever be mentioned in this conversation. Ed Martin was a bookie and a booster. He wasn't a coach. That has nothing to do with this. What Ed Martin did on the side was his thing. That had nothing to do with the university. Stop mentioning the Fab Five. That has nothing to do with this. That was an illegal bookie handing kids money. That's what that was. This is a totally different situation.
Guys, we should almost do a show just on this and what should happen.
I agree.
30 for 30.
Corruption in college or what? Yep. Corruption in college, 30 for 30.
All right, let's look into that. Maybe tomorrow or Friday we'll do a special one-off. But guys, we got to get back into handicap and let's get into college football. Hey, big Friday card, and the Thursday game looks good too. We got Texas on the road in Ames, Iowa, where weird things tend to happen. Let's hit on that game and Friday's card a little bit. Is anybody going with the home dog in Iowa State, Texas?
I don't know that I'm going to go with them. I'd like to see if we could somehow get 7 in this game, but I think for the game itself, it's a tough spot for the Texas Longhorns off of a bye. We know Tom Herman seemingly prepares his teams for big games, but we even saw back at Houston. They struggled in games like this, against the SMUs of the world or the UConns. It's tough to go to Ames on a Thursday night and play football. This team has gotten better. They have a pretty good quarterback now. All of a sudden, they have high-level receivers, and they're well-coached. I kind of like the over in this game. I said it before. Iowa State's secondary is poor. Texas's secondary is poor. Both quarterbacks should be able to move the ball. The concern I have here is who's the quarterback for Texas. But whether it's Buechele or Ehlinger, I believe it'd be Buechele here. I don't think it's going to matter. They'll be able to move the ball. I think both these teams get into the 30s. I'm looking over the total here. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Iowa State hang around and cover this game.
Yeah, when it comes to me with Texas, Tom Herman's one of those coaches where I just prefer him in the underdog role. I'm not going to be actively looking to lay 6 here with Texas. But at the same point in time, I'm not really interested in the underdog either. Iowa State's defense, and it looks like big man Shane Buechele is going to play. It looks like he's looking more and more like he's going to be the starter.
He was ready to play last week, and they went with Ehlinger, weirdly enough.
Yeah, exactly. And let's be honest, with Buechele there, they have much more of a explosive, prolific passing attack with Buechele under center instead of Ehlinger. It's a much more limited run-based attack that Texas looks to execute with Ehlinger. With Buechele under center, obviously they're going to be able to throw the ball a lot more effectively. And this Iowa State defense, I've got some concerns about them. I like what Matt Campbell's doing. I like the offense. I think Park is a very good quarterback for this team. They've got receivers. They've got a solid offensive line, but there's still a lot of concerns with Iowa State on the defensive side of the football. How you give up 41 points to that pedestrian Iowa offense, I'll never know in that rivalry game. I mean, they picked apart Iowa State's defense, Iowa, and we've seen Iowa's offense, they were okay against Wyoming. They didn't move the ball hardly much at all against Penn State this past weekend, even though they did get the cover in that game. So that Iowa State defense still giving up chunks, still giving up big plays. That's a concern for me. If anyone likes the over, I wouldn't talk them out of it. I mean, Buechele should make this a little bit more of an explosive Texas offense, whereas I think Iowa State's offense is still good enough to make some plays against Texas defensively. Texas defense played better against San Jose State, better against USC. They've played better the last couple of weeks, but going on the road to this Iowa State offense, which has shown the ability to move the ball, isn't going to be an easy task for the Longhorns. So if we see a high-scoring game, it wouldn't be a complete shock to me.
One also thing, Drew, I think something that was kind of fell into the fire with the USC game, because he did play particularly well, but why didn't Buechele start that game? I don't really understand that thinking pattern there. And during the game, I mean, where was Buechele? I mean, why was he just benched? I don't really understand. I mean, I don't get why that happened, but it'll be interesting to see how he plays here coming off, obviously that benching, if you will.
Hey, and guys, to push back on you a little bit, it sounds like you're both pro over. What about the fact that kind of extended rest period here? This isn't a short week. On a Thursday night, each team is having the extended rest, which I think kind of helps the defense. And also, Iowa State hasn't seen a defensive line like they're going to see on Thursday night. So that can make the quarterback play look a little bit.
I was pretty damn good on the defensive line.
You think that they're the level that Texas is on the D-line?
I think I was very good in the front seven. Josie Jewell is fantastic, I think. I think they're a Big Ten defensive line. I mean, Texas is very good. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, maybe Ian disagree. I think I was really good on the defensive line. I
think they're comparable. I'm not going to put Iowa leaps and bounds ahead of Texas in terms of their defensive line, but they're in the same ballpark. And I think in this situation, Iowa State's got, I think, enough in the tank to move the ball here, especially playing at home. They're going to be a little bit more comfortable. I like the Iowa State offense, and I like Campbell making things happen for that offense, the head coach. I mean, he's a good mind. He did a good job. He had good offenses all the time he was at Toledo. That team was able to move the football. I think Iowa State can score some points here in this game. But again, you can't take anything away from what Texas did defensively against USC. That was a very impressive defensive effort on the road. It was their defense that kept them in that game, gave them a chance to win it, and they end up losing in overtime. But the way they bottled up Darnold and even the running backs, other than Jones having that big play before halftime, they bottled up that Carr-Jones running back duo pretty well for USC. So Texas defense really showed me something. We'll see if they can show me something again here Thursday night.
All right, guys, Friday night. What about USC Washington State? Looks like it was opened 4, now down to 3.5. Short week for USC. Anybody biting on the Cougs and Pullman?
You know what I'll say about this game is I've made a lot of money the last couple of years with Mike Leach and Washington State in the underdog role, but here's the problem here. USC in the game of the year line was about -10 favorite in this game. And we're seeing a massive adjustment now with the USC point spread struggles that have clearly been on display. Didn't cover against Western, didn't cover against Texas, did not cover last week against Cal. In fact, they got outgained by California in that football game last week, did the Trojans. So there is now being an adjustment. As far as I'm concerned, this point spread is now a lot cheaper than it would have been prior to these USC point spread struggles of the last few weeks. So I'm not sure the value's there with Washington State, but at the same point in time, Washington State's, this is going to be a game they're up for. No question about that. Pullman, home game Friday night. But the thing that concerns me, and as much as I like Luke Falk, and as much as I think Washington State's defense is a lot better, has consistently gotten better under Mike Leach and under Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, Now there's an adjustment in the point spread. You pretty much almost got to win the game now to cover this number. And I want to see what Washington State can do in terms of putting forth a better performance with the bright lights and big stage on them. Because look at the recent performances with the bright lights and big stage on them. You know, the Apple Cup last year stands out like a sore thumb against Washington. Win that game, you're in the Pac-12 championship. You were non-competitive. You were not ready to play. You made mistakes. You turned the ball over. Penalties. Falk was terrible. Bad performance in a big spot for Washington State. Bowl game against Minnesota, a Minnesota team that had a ton of suspensions going into that game. An awful performance from Falk, an awful performance really from the team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They lose that game. The big spot has really hurt Washington State down the stretch last season. This is their biggest game since that Apple Cup last year. Let's see how they respond to it. I'm going to stay away from the side, probably the total as well. It's a high number, but I think both of these teams, especially Washington State, are better defensively than some people think. And USC's offense hasn't exactly clicked. They didn't click against Texas. They didn't click against Cal. I think that total might be just a notch high. I'm not going to bet it either way. I'm staying out of this game completely, but I just don't know if the value's there to step in with the Cougars this time around.
Donnie or Big Man, any other thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, just looking from a betting perspective, if you're looking, 37% of the early tickets spread-wise coming in on Washington State, I think Washington State's actually in a pretty good spot here overall. I'm not as impressed with USC on the defensive end of the football, which you're going to have to stop that high-powered Washington State attack. And I know we've all heard Washington State hasn't played that many people. It's still a really good football team. They're going to be at home, getting points in a good spot for them on a Friday, short work week for the USC Trojans. But in a sense, looking at it, you say, Ron Jones is going to come back in this football game. He's going to be hell on wheels out there. I get that. Sam Darnold, one of those Heisman-type, caliber quarterbacks. But you look at the spread. They're opening up at 4, now down to 3.5 at most places. The line's probably going to end up somewhere around 4. I can't see the line closing at 3. I think that would be a little bit too sharp where you'd lean towards USC. And I can't see this line closing at 6, which would be way too many points to give Washington State at home. If I had to bet the football game, which I won't be betting it, I would lean towards Washington State just being in a good spot.
All right, good stuff, Donnie. And guys, if you're liking the content here, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us out a lot. We got the Degenerate special last week. I believe all of us either didn't bet it or were on FIU. So I guess 1-0 in the Degenerate special for the roundtable. Let's get on to just quick hit this one. We got 129, 130, Akron versus Bowling Green, guys. A little Maction. Looks like Akron laying 2.5 on the road. That's a tough one to bet the Zips laying on the road. And Bowling Green, they've been pretty shitty this year. So are you betting on Bowling Green or laying it with Akron, Ian?
You know what? I should be betting more of these crap-ass games more seriously than I am right now, because I had FIU in that Degenerate special game last week, and they end up getting the job done. So this is a tough one for me. I actually somewhat can understand the move toward Akron, a little flip of favorites here. Bowling Green was favored. Akron now on the road. We saw Bowling Green get pretty much drilled by Michigan State, and then we see Michigan State turn around and get drilled really by the only decent team they've played so far in Notre Dame this past weekend. So Bowling Green to me is just a team that ever since Dino Babers has left there, Drew, it's not a team that I've really been interested in betting on, because I think they've just been on a downward slide slowly but surely ever since that time. They've just progressively gotten worse, and all that progress that Dino Babers made there pretty much evaporated, pretty much eroded from this Bowling Green team. I know Akron hasn't been great shakes either, but hey, they did play Penn State. They got walloped, obviously, but at least, they stepped up in class, played an opponent of that ilk. Gun to my head, I'd say Akron wins this game. I'd lean to the Zips here on the road.
Yeah, and Akron taking money. Donnie, what about you? How are you feeling in this match?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to lean Akron. The thing that's boggling my mind here is Bowling Green on paper has a very good offense. If you saw the way they finished the season last year, you thought they would step into the season, and if not winning football games, getting in the shootouts, 41-38, 45-41. Looking at their first couple games, I mean, Middle Tennessee State doesn't pose that big of a threat on defense. 13 points. Northwestern, okay, you played a Big Ten team, but we've seen a lot of these MAC teams step out of conference and play very well. You get 7 points in that game. You lose outright to South Dakota. You play Michigan State. You put up 10 points. This is supposed to be a high-octane offense. Not for nothing, just taking your shots and that many steps up to the plate. You should be getting into the 20s every game because your defense isn't very good. You're going to be getting the ball back fast. That's a real red flag to me. I would lean Akron, but I am surprised that Bowling Green hasn't formulated much offense here. They should. They're good. They're talented.
Yeah, no disagreement here. What about you, Big Man? Any thoughts on this game?
The problem that they've had is they haven't had the balls to change quarterbacks, and they finally did it last week against Middle Tennessee. They brought in the dual threat quarterback, Jared Doge here. Look, I mean, James Morgan's been terrible. I mean, he's been horrible. 42% completion percentage. They've had no legit run threat, and that's the problem. Their play calling's been shitty, and they finally brought in a new quarterback, had a great game last week. I know they lost, but again, they're starting to play better. And look, I got to tell you, I'm not Tommy Woodson. I mean, this guy has literally been the same quarterback his whole career. I mean, he's been there about 8 years, and he's always been the same quarterback. Look, Bowling Green, historically, and I know people say, well, they had much better teams back then, but they've covered 11 of 13 against Akron here. They're at home. I think they're getting a little better here, to be honest. They played great competition thus far. I look for them to hang in this game. I think they win. I think Akron's a bad team. I think Terry Bowden's a guy that should be on his way out. And I think this new injection here with Doge at quarterback, I think it might pay dividends here, and they're going to have a pretty nice night on Saturday. I'm going to go with Bowling Green here.
I like it, big man. Find and change. Like we all know, that's how you win in this business. So you're saying that you actually saw an offensive spark in Bowling Green with that change?
Yeah, I thought Doge looked really good. I mean, James Morgan hasn't. James Morgan has struggled there. I mean, he has really had some problems. 42% completion. They're one of the worst rush offenses in the country. 81 yards a game. And you look at last week, Doge had a pretty good game, started to get the offense going a little bit. I think they just needed a kind of a change at quarterback. I mean, Morgan was just kind of that guy they went to every year, and he seemed to be the logical choice. But, you know, overall, I know they lost, but I thought he played well. I thought they kind of commanded and played well there. It was in Murfreesboro, so that's not any great shakes of losing. But, I mean, he was 21 for 35, threw for over 280 yards. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a kid that just comes off the bench and had a touchdown as well. So, yeah, and he started the game, by the way. It was his start. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons here. You know, again, these are degenerate specials for a reason. But
if he's a dual, Jeff, if he's a dual threat, why do they only have 1 yard rushing versus Middle Tennessee State, though, if he started the whole game?
Well, he's more of a passer.
And sack yards in college football go against the quarterback rushing, too. So I don't know if he was sacked a lot.
And look, I mean, I think Donnie clearly likes Akron here, and he's trying to make.
No, I mean, I don't clearly like it, but I mean, something is amiss with that. I mean, they scored. If you say like the offenses got really better, I mean, they scored 13 against Middle Tennessee State. I mean,
but they moved the football. That's what I'm saying here. And this is a MAC game. They're at home. But yeah, I think you're devaluing Middle Tennessee State. Their defense has gotten a lot better with Schaefer at the helm. You look at their games; they're playing lower scoring football games. They're holding, offense like Syracuse to, I think, 24 points. I mean, but again, I mean, listen, it's a poor game to choose, but I mean, I see a little bit of reason to back Bowling Green.
There is a little PJ Phillip Walker in Thomas Woodson, a guy that is, has battled injuries, but has not progressed whatsoever. And in fact, you could argue he's gotten worse over time. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 58% completions this year for Woodson. Those aren't numbers that exactly set the world on fire. Here's your choices. Bowling Green's been outgained heavily in 4 games. Akron's been outgained heavily in 3 of 4 games. So you're talking about teams that have lost the yardage and the stats by big margins so far this season. That's basically your choice here. So that's why it's a game from a betting perspective I'm staying away from. But hey, where else can you find 5 solid minutes of discussion about Akron versus Bowling Green than right here on the round table?
And I'll make it 30 more seconds. One other thing about Akron that I think is interesting, usually under Bowden, they've been a low-scoring, defensive-minded team. Donnie, you remember that 2 or 3 years ago. Very good defense. They're not that anymore. They're giving up over 30 points a game. They've struggled to defend, and that's another thing that Akron, I think, has fallen behind the 8 ball with. Their quarterback play and offense has not been good, and now their defense isn't good. So they're not in games now that they may have been before. Now they're more of toss-up games because they don't have that defense to fall back on.
Guys, great breakdown. Big man, I'm going with you, man. I got to tip my cap to you. I like you find and change like that.
Hey, listen, it's Bowling Green's freshman quarterback, so we'll see. I mean, you never know. He could fall flat on his face here. I don't know.
It's the devil. It's the devil you know for Akron at quarterback against the devil you don't know for Bowling Green here. So those are your choices. That's what you're dealing with here.
That's why we picked this game. Yeah.
Wouldn't you take the lesser unknown over Tommy Woodson. I mean, really. I mean, Tommy Woodson's just so average. I mean, give me a spark. I'll take the young kid here.
All right, I like it. I'll go with it too. And we're playing with house money. We got the win Degenerate special last week with FIU.
Yep. So if we lose, we get our money back.
Yeah. Well, guys,
believe it or not, I actually was starting to like that FIU play more and more as the week went.
Yeah, I wish I would have played
on my card. It almost got on my card. I'm dead serious.
Amazing that Rice was a favorite, right? Amazing.
Yep.
Dude, I was sitting here on Saturday, I was watching that game. FIU was absolutely the right side. I mean, they dominated Rice. But, guys, let's go from the Degenerate special to 2 undefeated teams. We got a big one in the AAC. Memphis versus UCF. This game is rescheduled. And actually, UCF took, I believe, 1.5 points. In the last game, I think they were, right around -2 or so. And now they're -4 at home at Bright House Networks. Looks like we got a total anywhere from 69 to 71 on the SBR odds screen. So shop around if you're betting this total. But you want to start us off, big man, with the Memphis UCF thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a really tough game from a side perspective. I mean, it reminds me a lot. I said to Donnie of Memphis UCLA a couple weeks ago. You have 2 teams that are high up tempo. They love to throw the football around and go up and down the field. And you have 2 defenses here that I don't think are very good. We can be jaded and look at UCF and say, well, big man, they only gave up 13.5 points a game over their first couple games. But they played Florida International, who sucks, and Maryland and their 4-string quarterback. So I don't put a lot of stock. I don't think defensively they're going to be very good. And I think Memphis may exploit that this weekend. For me, I would look over. I don't know if I'll be involved with this game, but in the AAC, betting overs are normally your friend. It's normally something that comes in. We've seen that Memphis can't stop anybody, and they do have some injury concerns in their defensive backfield. Tito Wyndham is out. Marcus Green's out, both defensive backs. Christian Slaughter as well. Depth's going to be a problem in their secondary. Offenses should both move at a pretty high pace here. We know Mckenzie Milton can move the football around. I would look over 69.
Donnie, any follow-up to that one?
Yeah, no, I would look, in this game, Memphis, Central Florida, I lean towards the home team here. I like what Scott Frost got going down there. I think the defense, you're right, they haven't been tested that much. You go to still putting up 38-10, though. It's not like they beat Maryland, 14-13. I mean, they hammered Maryland in their own ballpark, which was a really interesting game to watch. I know a lot of people had, sharp plays on Maryland and, couldn't figure out, after a couple weeks off how UCF would play. Well, they were very fresh in that football game, won it fairly easily, and played good defense, even though you're right, there were some injuries down at quarterback, and you're down to your 3rd or 4th string quarterback ending that football game. But the one thing I don't like that much against Memphis is, UL Monroe, I know that game was a little bit in the rain, but it was 37-29. UCLA, which, is a sieve on defense. Yes, they scored, but they couldn't stop Josh Rosen to save their life, which, again, no slouch. I mean, Memphis, not obviously a Power 5 school, but then you look at the Southern Illinois game, 44-31. I just don't know if they have enough to go on the road. Ferguson's an unbelievable quarterback. I love their offense, but I just look at Scott Frost and that UCF offense. I don't see Memphis getting too many stops in this football game. So if I were leaning towards betting it, obviously would lean towards the over, but I like the home team here. I see very few stops out of Memphis in this ball game.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild atmosphere there in Orlando for this one. And Bobano, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I lean to the over. From a side perspective, it's bet on versus bet on for me. I like both of these teams. I like Memphis coming into the season, and I really like Central Florida coming into the season. In fact, I haven't capitalized, I think, enough on how good Central Florida has been so far to the extent that I was hoping for. I haven't really been involved with UCF games. I'm just worried they were not priced properly. But, you look at what they've done so far. They're 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread, absolutely crushed the number. What have they beaten this number by? I mean, we're looking at about, 80 points or so that they've combined point spread win that they've beaten the spread by in their 2 wins against Florida International and Maryland. Really, really, really impressive stuff from Central Florida, especially on defense. Look at the total yards last week on the road against Maryland, 428 to 197. Total yard edge for Central Florida. Domination, really, and very impressed with their defense. However, Memphis does have a pretty damn good offense, pretty damn good quarterback in Riley Ferguson. They've got injuries defensively, and I like this quarterback too for UCF, Mckenzie Milton. 94 yards rushing he had last week against Maryland. He's a dual threat, can run. He hasn't been forcing balls and making mistakes because of his ability to run. If nobody's open down the field, I'll just pull the football down and take off with it. I mean, he's been making good decisions with it. I think Central Florida, for as terrific as they've been defensively so far, this is not going to be as easy an offense to shut down here facing Memphis. So I would lean over the total. Not sure I'll bet it, but from a side perspective, clear pass. I like both of these teams, but if you had to ask me who wins this game, I'd lean ever so slightly to the home team, to the Knights.
And guys, what about just coming back at you with the kind of volatility when you're handicapping UCF's defense, because they've only played 2 games. One was against FIU, the other against Maryland, who I was on that over, lost, but we all brought up the fact of their quarterback did go down and their 3rd string quarterback looked like a deer in the headlights. So as far as putting too much emphasis into UCF's defense being good, how are you guys looking to handicap that side of the ball? Big man, what do you think?
I'm not running to the window to bet unders with them or thinking they can get any stops. Drew, I think one thing when we're dealing with a conference like the AAC, I think a lot of time, kind of into the second quarter, when they start to play Memphis, they kind of just throw out defense, just try to, outscore each other. Do I think UCF's better defense than Memphis? Yeah, but I don't think that's saying much. They are a team that they're fairly unproven, and I don't put a lot of stock in FIU and Maryland. Maryland was with, by the way, like we said, a backup quarterback. So, yeah, I think they're unknown. I got to do a little bit more research on the personnel there, but I don't think they're very good from what I've read and what I've seen. I'll think they'll have trouble getting stops, but I think they might be slightly better than Memphis.
Yeah, okay. The Memphis defense, to me, Drew's got some massive issues. Now, you could look at last week against Southern Illinois, the Salukis, an FCS opponent. Southern Illinois hangs 393 total yards, 23 first downs. They absolutely torched them in the secondary, and that's a problem for this Memphis team. Now, is it a situation where they're a little flat off the huge win against UCLA the week before, or is this just a case of a defense that's just not very good? And let's not forget, in bad weather conditions, the very first week of the season against UL Monroe moved that ball up and down against Memphis in that game, and the conditions were absolute shit in that game, and they were still able to move the ball very effectively.
I think
Matt Yater's team in that game. So Memphis's defense does have massive issues right now and concerns that I have with them.
Yeah, I think one thing, if I can remember correctly, I do believe they had to replace all 4 secondary positions UCF last year, and I think 2 linebackers. So they're fairly green around the gills in the secondary. They have a pretty good defensive line, if I can remember. But overall, I think they're gonna struggle as well. And like Ian said, I mean, Memphis, they've made it a point to mention that they don't care much about defense.
And it's a shame. I thought the defense for Memphis would be better, and I've not seen major steps forward from that unit yet this season.
Right.
All right, guys. Great breakdown on college football. And remember, we got over 100 people watching right now. We really appreciate that. Please give us a thumbs up. And, on Friday, Saturday, really throughout the week, we're trying to make the college football page here on SBR more sharper. Great information. Even on Sunday, there's a State of the Union article that comes out on what happened betting-wise going forward for the next week. It's a great read. And NFL-wise, as you can tell, Donnie really knows his stuff. We got some other guys writing great pieces on the NFL side. So SBR is a great shop for you to go and get your information betting into the week. But guys, let's get into best bets here. Start us off, college football, NFL, even Major League Baseball or CFL for you. Ian, you want to start us off? Find Ian at Babano, his work at sportsmemo.com. Ian, what do you got for best bets?
Well, you know what? I made up my mind I was going to use this as a best bet, and the number's a lot worse right now. But I'm going to still stick with it because I think they're in this game right till the end and also have a chance to win it. Let's take the LA Rams in the NFL here. That's rotation number 255. Plus 6.5 is what I'm going to go with because we've got that at the Greek right now. Plus 6.5. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go 5 dimes here. It's a little juicier. I get the 7. I like that. Plus 7, minus 135. LA Rams, rotation number 255. Look, LA Rams are moving the ball offensively. I'm seeing progress from Jared Goff. Todd Gurley looks revitalized, reinvigorated. This offense under Sean McVay has a clue finally of how to move the football. And just from a scheduling and spot perspective, this is an advantage here for the LA Rams, catching the Dallas Cowboys off the Monday nighter. Short week for them. A Dallas team that's still got some issues in the secondary with injuries, with just a secondary that I don't really trust here. You saw Scandrick, even, who's supposed to be their best cornerback, make some mistakes and bad plays in that pass defense for Dallas against Arizona on Monday night. Just a very good situational spot set up here for the LA Rams. And the LA Rams are going to be an attractive team catching points, in my opinion. The offense has improved. The defense, to me, is still pretty solid. I really don't put much stock in the fact that their defense did not look good against San Francisco on the Thursday night. That was just one of those weird games where it seems like that early pick six by Hoyer set off the alarm bells and just everything exploded from that point, and it turned into one of those wild and wacky kamikaze NFL football games. And it was just, back and forth like a pinball machine the rest of the way. I think the Rams get back to better defensive performance here, albeit against Dak Prescott and the Dallas offense, which, played well enough to win against Arizona. Prescott made some great plays rolling out of the pocket down the field to help them beat Arizona. We'll see if they can do it here. There's a tough spot for Dallas, and the Rams have been feisty and competitive. Give me the Rams +6, best bet for the round table.
Ian Cameron.
+7, -135, 5 times. Let me get that correct.
Taking the dog in the NFL. LA Rams +7. And hats off to you, Ian. I know you've been killing it in the CFL, also college football, NFL. Got to be one of the best records around right now, year to date in football. So hats off to you. Donnie, you want to go next up with the best bets?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of Ian there. I do like that play there. It sets up really well rest-wise in the NFL for the Rams. The only reason I haven't actually pulled the trigger on that one yet, I want to see LaMarcus Joyner back in there. I want to see Sammy Watkins out of concussion protocol and a couple other banged-up guys. But if they come into that game healthy, there's no reason to be – and again, this is coming from an L.A. Rams hater from my perspective.
Yes,
coming into the season, but it's all about – yeah, it's all about spots, and I think the Rams are in a great spot here. And so kudos to that pick. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter here. Let's go Thursday Night Football, rotation 101, 102. We'll go with the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers, not from a side perspective, because you know me, I like to lean on the home team here. Looks like they're getting around 7.5, depending where you're at. But I'm actually going to look to the total in this one, 45.5. Typically, when you look at a Green Bay Packers team, you're always going to want to take the over. It's Aaron Rodgers, high-powered affair. But let's take a look at typically, on a Thursday Night Football game, a little bit more sloppy. It's a division opponent. Both these teams know each other. Also, people, let's keep in mind here, both of these teams played an overtime game on Sunday, coming in a little bit banged up. Randall Cobb should be a go for Green Bay, which was going to help Aaron Rodgers, but a laundry list of injuries on both sides coming in right now. Limited practice time. Both these teams know each other. I'm actually going to lean on sportsbook.com right now and go under the total of 46 in this football game. Short week, banged up, division opponent. I see a little bit lower scoring than normal here.
All right, Donnie on the Chicago Green Bay under 46. Find his work at DonnieRightside.com. And last but not least, big man on campus. What do you got for best bets?
Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone to just be patient here with my pick. I got a reason for this pick, and I want to make sure everyone finds it correctly. College football extra on 5 dimes. Game number 326. I'm going with North Dakota State -33.5 against Missouri State. Okay, North Dakota State has covered a lot this year. I've actually bet them a couple different times. They are the typical North Dakota State team. They're leading the FCS in every major category, scoring defense, scoring offense, rushing offense. You look at Missouri State, this team has gotten shredded on the ground this year, 94th in FCS in rushing defense. Look at last week, Robert Morris lost 56-0 to North Dakota State, and they're actually better at stopping the run than Missouri State is. Chris Kleiman, this is one of his best teams. It's the first game of the conference in the Fargo Dome. Easton Stick has been fantastic at quarterback. Lance Dunn has been an absolute beast at running back, and this defense has been very good. They're the best scoring defense by a long margin in the FCS. They're just a very good team. They're going to roll through FCS this year. I don't see any reason they don't trash Missouri State here. Missouri State gave up 72 points to Missouri week 1. They also gave up 34 to North Dakota. They just struggled. They can't move the football, and against this defense, they're going to get smacked in the face. I look for North Dakota State to not only cover, but cover easily. Another easy number for the big boys in the Bison here. I think they win this one 49-6.
North Dakota State -33 in the Fargo Dome. And hats off to you, Jeff. You had that Kent State one right a couple weeks ago. I don't think I ever said anything to you. Thanks for that. I bet that one. So yeah, North Dakota State -33, and I'll add in Buffalo -7 right now at Pinnacle, and then just very simply fading Kent State, like Big Man did a couple weeks ago. So that's it, guys. Anything else for the roundtable before we shut it down?
And I was very tempted, by the way, for best bet with Fresno laying the points. I think Fresno, believe it or not, has taken some steps forward, and Nevada is just horrendous. I mean, there's no words to describe how bad the Nevada Wolfpack are. Fresno is close to being best bet. I think laying the points there worth a look.
All right, boys. We'll be back next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. For Jeff, Donnie, Ian, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
Thank you.